how Biden's policies will blow up the U.S. economy. Now let's just briefly review some of his accomplishments so far in office. And he's only been in office for 7 months, okay? And he's accomplished all of these things in that relatively short period of time. First of all, he immediately destroyed border security. He did this with incredible precision and swiftness. He took something that was already fixed, or at least in a holding pattern, and he quickly made changes and eliminated every single policy that was in place and caused an incredible influx of illegal immigrants. Second, his anti-fossil fuel policies have completely destroyed the United States' energy independence and has caused us to again be completely dependent on foreign oil, and specifically OPEC. Let's just take a look at some of the things that he's done, some of his accomplishments in this particular category. He killed the Keystone Pipeline, right? He stopped drilling leases in Alaska and on federal lands. He reauthorized the Endangered Species Act, which basically eliminated any drilling in western states. And all of this has made oil and gas exploration more expensive and basically has pushed us back into dependence on OPEC for our energy. Oh, did I mention that gas has gone up over 40% since he took office? That's just another added benefit. Third, soft on crime. While he might not be responsible for the defund the police movement, the rhetoric coming out of the White House surely has encouraged some of these left-wing lunatics to promote this ridiculous and stupid idea. The result, we are less safe, cities are seeing an explosion in crime, and, this was done, actually a continuation of what was already being done, but notable accomplishment. And one of his really big accomplishments, number 4, he completely botched the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now this is still, playing out, but so far he's managed to cause, directly or indirectly, the needless death of 13 servicemen from the U.S. Due to poor planning and basically a botched withdrawal. And number 5, the $6 trillion that's already been spent due to the pandemic, which admittedly started under Trump at the height of the pandemic. Now he is talking about an additional expenditure of $3.5 trillion, which we're going to talk more about later in this video, and also a $1.2 trillion infrastructure plan. All of this, the money that's already been spent and the money that will be spent, will contribute to the overheating of the economy. Inflation is going up, taking money out of the budgets of working men and women. It's close to 6% now and is expected to grow. And all of this spending is really not even needed, considering that the fact that GDP is exceeding 6% and expected to be as high as 10% this year. Now, most incompetent presidents would be satisfied with all of these accomplishments within the 7 months, but now Joe Biden, being even more ambitious than the normal imbecile, has set his sights on destroying the entire economy with a reckless spending plan of $3.5 trillion and also a bipartisan, which 18 Republicans signed on to, of the infrastructure plan, where I figured out is only 33% actually going to be spent on infrastructure, but we'll look at that a little bit more detail later in this video. But before we get started getting into the details of all of this stuff, please, if you get value out of this, subscribe and like, and don't forget to hit the bell. It really helps me in the channel. It really helps the channel. And also, I'm looking forward to your comments. This channel is not a political channel. It is a markets and investment channel. So this is in no way meant to be political. The criticisms that I'm putting forth for Biden is solely due to his administration. It wouldn't matter if he was Democrat or Republican. I would be saying the same things. Okay, so Sleepy Creepy Joe is looking to outdo himself, outdo what he's done in the first 7 months, and bring it to a huge crescendo before the midterm elections. And he came up with this idea, or his handlers came up with this idea called Build Back Better. So for the purposes of this video, we're just going to call it Build Back Badder. This is a program of an additional $5 trillion of deficit spending, because we don't have the money. We're going to borrow that money, and the Fed is going to monetize it, meaning the Fed's going to print money and buy the bonds, but still we're buying it, we're borrowing the money, and we are a very indebted nation. Now, all of this ridiculous expansion of the welfare state and the quote infrastructure plan, which I've said is only 33% real infrastructure, like roads and bridges and tunnels and ports and things of that nature. A lot of it is the Green New Deal and money going toward EV cars and things of that nature, which really have nothing to do with infrastructure. But all of this is being financed and encouraged by the Fed, because politicians would never in their wildest dreams think that they could think in terms of trillions unless two things happened. One, the pandemic came in, and two, you had an overly accommodative Fed that was highly political, which the Fed's not supposed to be, but Powell seems to be only concerned about getting reappointed and not concerned with doing what's best for the country. So as a result, we're in this situation where these lunatic politicians think they can just spend money, borrow the money, it's all deficit spending, and it's all money we don't have. Now, the Fed has been continuing to purchase $120 billion a month of Treasury securities, and they're doing this by printing money. Okay, they're printing money, they're increasing the money supply, they're devaluing the dollar, and this irresponsible policy is simply facilitating Bernie Sanders' wildest wet dream that would make any Marxist blush. And I'm not talking about Groucho Marx here, I'm talking about the other Marx. And it's enabling the left wing of the Democratic Party, these Marxist Democrats, to hoist upon the American people a socialist agenda, which was never intended by the American people. When they voted for Biden, they thought they were voting for a moderate, but instead they got Bernie Sanders' complete socialist agenda served to them on a silver platter, or more accurately, shoved down their throat. Now, what makes matters worse, you look at what the Democrats actually control. They control, it's a 50-50% in the Senate, so it's evenly based, and the vice president would have to break a tie, so it's 50-50 in the Senate, and the House only has 4 votes in terms of the majority. So basically, the American people did not give the Democrats a mandate to do this. It has been hoisted upon them by the left wing of the Democratic Party, which is basically headed by Bernie Sanders and some of the other left wing lunatics. But what really is this Build Back Better program? Okay, let's just go through really briefly the 3 components of it, and then we're going to take a look more deeply at each one of these components. The first one is the American Jobs Plan. Okay, this is the name that they gave to the $1.2 billion infrastructure plan, which supposedly is bipartisan, and that's what they call it, the American Jobs Plan. The second component is the American Families Plan. Sounds good, doesn't it? But this is the $3.5 trillion tax and spend extravaganza, which involves primarily social engineering and a massive expansion of entitlements where once implemented will never be rescinded. And then, of course, the third component, which engenders and promotes all of these social engineering and Green New Deal initiatives, is Biden's basic fiscal year 2022 budget. So those are the three components of this extravaganza and this tax and spend orgy that Biden is about to use to not only blow up the budget of the government, but potentially blow up the entire economy. Okay, so let's start looking at this by taking a look at the current budget deficit. This is the sad story right before you here. This is the Great Recession period, 08-09. You can see the deficit went up tremendously. By the way, the last time we had a surplus was 2001. Okay, kind of sad. But you saw it went down steadily. 2015, it hit a low, and then 2016, this was the Trump tax cut with the defense buildup, and then this is when COVID hit. Okay, and they started shoveling out money to everyone, and you know, the budget deficit went above $3 trillion. It's currently above $3 trillion right now. Let's take a look at the so-called infrastructure bill. Here you can see the components. This is the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. Let's just go through the categories really quickly here. You see $110 billion for roads and bridges. Okay, that's infrastructure. Let's check that one off. $66 billion for railroads. That's questionable because a lot of this is going to go to Amtrak, which has been a black hole in terms of money ever since its existence. So that's a little bit questionable as to if you would consider that infrastructure. Power grid, clearly infrastructure. Broadband, yes, you can call that infrastructure. Water infrastructure, yes, you can call that infrastructure. Cybersecurity and climate change, no. No, that is not infrastructure. That's $47 billion. You know how much freaking money that is? Holy shit. Okay, public transportation, all right. Public transportation is also a black hole, but okay, $39 billion for public transit will include that. Airports, yes. Okay. $21 billion for the environment. No, that's not infrastructure. $17 billion for ports. Yes, infrastructure. $11 billion for safety. No. No. $8 billion for Western water infrastructure. Okay. Let's be generous and call that infrastructure. Vehicle charging stations? No. That's the Biden administration pushing electric vehicles and electric buses, $7.5 billion for electric buses. No. So when you net everything out, it is basically 400 billion out of the 1.2 trillion is considered true infrastructure. That's about 33% of the total. Okay, so this is not what it was advertised as. 18 Republican senators signed on to this. There's a lot of shenanigans going on here, believe me. And the way the government allocates money inefficiently, billions of dollars will be wasted, guaranteed. Now let's take a look at the 3.5 trillion reconciliation program, otherwise known as the American Families Plan. Wow, that sounds good, doesn't it? Unbelievable smokescreen here. We'll just take a quick look at this. You can see all the wasteful, idiotic things in this. 135 billion for committee, agriculture, nutrition, and forestry. That sounds like a bunch of garbage. 332 billion for the banking committee? What? What the hell is this? This is going to like force banks to lend to unprofitable endeavors. Sounds like the seeds of the next financial crisis. 198 billion for Energy and Natural Resources Committee. This would develop clean energy. This is the Green New Deal, folks. 198 billion. The numbers that these guys are throwing around is insane. Okay? Absolutely insane. 1.8 trillion for the Finance Committee. Working families. 1.8 trillion. 1.8 trillion. You can't even conceive of that. Working families, elderly, and the environment. Wow. Totally ambiguous. Tax cuts for families making less than $400,000. You believe that? I got some marshland in Florida to sell you. Ensuring the wealthy and large corporations pay their fair share of taxes. I mean, this is more virtue signaling garbage. But this is $1.8 trillion. This is insane. $726 billion for health, labor, education, and pensions. Another bunch of just giving away money to people. Okay, they could be for good reasons, but, you know. I mean, this is something rich countries do, guys. We're not rich. We're a debtor nation. We print money to be able to pay our bills. This is a banana republic. This is unbelievable. 37 billion. I'm not. Look, for federal vehicle fleet, electrifying and rehabbing federal buildings, improving cybersecurity, reinforced border management. That's great. I love that. Investing green material. This is more Green New Deal garbage. 107 billion for Judiciary Committee, lawful permanent status. All right, this is an amnesty program. You got to spend $107 billion to give illegal immigrants amnesty? What in God's name is going on here? Look, 20 billion for Indian Affairs. Again, I got nothing against Indians, okay? But this is something a rich nation does. We're not rich. Small business? Okay. All right, I'm for that. But again, 25 billion? I mean, 18 billion for Veterans Affairs. Okay, I love the veterans. Great. Fantastic. 83 billion for the Commerce Committee. Investment, technology, transportation, research, manufacturing, economic development, funding for coastal resiliencies. The coastal elites got that in there. Healthy oceans, investment, national blah, 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 blah. You see what I mean, folks? I mean, this is this is something that Bernie Sanders dreamt about in his wildest dreams, that he never thought would happen, and the American people did not vote for all this stuff. And we cannot afford $3.5 trillion. We are a debtor nation. We have over a $3 trillion
budget deficit. This is all borrowed money. This is crap. It would never pass the Senate in a normal process that needs 60-vote majority. It would never pass. They're passing this by gimmickry through the reconciliation process, and it's wrong, and it should be stopped. Okay, there's one more thing I wanted to go over. I don't want to go into too much detail on the tax increases that come along with the American Families Plan, but I just want to go through a couple of these. The reason I don't want to go into a lot of detail on this is none of this has been passed by Congress, even by the reconciliation package yet. There's a lot of things in flux here going back and forth, but just to give you a flavor of what they're talking about, they would propose to raise the top marginal income tax from 37% to 39.6%, and this would apply to income over $452,000 for single filers, $481 for head of households, and $509 for joint filers. I thought that was lower. I thought that was $400,000, but anyway, that's what this says here. One of the most damaging things for us as investors is that they're screwing around with the long-term capital gains tax. In this version, they limited it to people with income above $1 million. They would tax long-term capital gains as ordinary income for people with adjusted gross income of above $1 million, for a top marginal tax rate of 43.4%. I object to this on principle. Capital gains should never be taxed as ordinary income. There is a distinction between short-term capital gains and long-term capital gains. There should always be a benefit to investing long-term over a year, and investors, regardless of income, should be incentivized to invest, save and invest. This is a horrible, horrible thing, this next thing, taxing unrealized capital gains at death or unrealized gains above $1 million. This is a terrible, terrible precedent to set. Anything that taxes unrealized capital gains, I am against, and you should be against if you consider yourself an investor. This is a horrible, horrible precedent. Here's another horrible thing, and very, very negative for real estate. One of the aspects of real estate investing that the government always gave real estate investors an incentive because of the lack of liquidity, etc., was to allow them to do 1031 like-kind exchanges where they could defer their capital gains by making like-in-kind investments. In other words, rolling the sale of a property into another like property and defer the tax liability. This was something that for years and years and years, many generations, has always been in the tax code. They're looking to get rid of it. Very bad, very negative for investors. Here, this next one here, the enhanced child tax credit, they're basically paying people to have children. Not sure why they think that's such a great idea. I get it. For lower income people, helping them with children, that's a good idea. Although, they're limiting it to $150,000 for joint filers. I'm not sure why somebody making $150,000 needs to get paid by the government to have children. These things are they're just so misplaced. They're very negative for investors. And guys, you got to realize, if you're watching this channel, you're calling yourself an investor, this is very negative, and it's aimed at you. Don't think it's going to hit the other guy and not you. If you're a successful investor, it'll eventually hit you.
Okay guys, so in looking at some of the details of this, I hope it gave you a flavor for what we're talking about and what this administration is looking to do. The result of these policies will be to further increase the enormous federal debt that we have, which is now approaching $28-29 trillion. This debt will have to be monetized by the Fed, and it could not even be contemplated without the Fed complicit in this entire plan and buying the Treasury bonds, because the recent trend has been foreign governments have been cutting back $100 billion a year. This has been a trend for some time. They are getting nervous about the level of debt in the United States, and all of these irresponsible policies that would normally be implemented by a rich nation, and we are not a rich nation, guys, I hate to tell you. These policies will further trash the dollar and ultimately may lead to the U.S. losing its status as the world's reserve currency. This is how all great dynasties fail and ultimately fall. There are many examples in history, and given the track record of the last 7 months, I believe Biden is up to the task of trashing the entire economy. And if I'm a betting man, which I am, I would bet that he'll be able to get the job done. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed, please subscribe and like. Don't forget to hit the bell so you get notified in the future when I come out with more videos. The purpose of this channel is markets and investment, and it's intended to make you a better investor and a smarter investor. So please subscribe so you can be on board for future presentations, which will be coming your way very soon.